Thank you very much for introducing me, and thank you very much, organization, for inviting me here to this conference and in this wonderful area. This is my second time actually to Riga, and when I came the first time I was already impressed by the beauty of the inner city. I wasn't actually aware of this area, so it's another great discovery. What I will do today is to give a sort of big picture of the knowledge economy, like what are we talking about, what is the knowledge economy, and what kind of developments do we see in this knowledge economy, and also what does it mean for places and spaces, what kind of areas do we need in this knowledge economy. I did a lot of research myself, mainly in Europe, to study how cities and regions are doing in this knowledge economy. So in terms of how well they do, how well they perform, but also in terms of policies, what kind of things do they actually do to improve their local knowledge economy. And hopefully by sharing this with you, it can be a source of discussion, and it can also hopefully be a source of inspiration for how to go on here in Riga and in Latvia with these topics. So I will start quite broadly with some features of the knowledge economy. What is it? Actually, one feature of the knowledge economy is that we are more productive. We can produce more with less resources because we do things in a smarter way. So that means we create more wealth. If you compare our economy now with the one that we had 100 years or 200 years ago, you can see we are so much richer, and that is because we do things differently, we produce differently, we use a lot more knowledge and innovation. Secondly, what is characteristic for our current time, not exactly now, but for the last decades, is that the knowledge economy has become really global. So it used to be something of the US and Europe mainly, but now also China and Asia have joined the race. And we can see actually that the speed at which new knowledge is being developed, how fast innovations are emerging, has really, really increased. And so we could say that the global brain has become bigger and it has become more connected. So we innovate faster, we develop knowledge much faster than we did, let's say, half a decade or half a century ago. Another aspect of the knowledge economy, why do we call it knowledge economy? It's because knowledge is really the driver of growth and of development. So the key assets in this knowledge economy, as I put them on the screen, the first one is human capital. So it's not raw materials, it's not coal or steel or iron. Of course we need that still, but it's the human capital that is the driver. And another thing, human collaboration. And I think the minister already pointed at it. We need to collaborate in new ways to make things happen. So we cannot work anymore in silos, like, okay, here is the university, here is business, here is government. No, we need new types of collaboration to make this knowledge economy fruitful. And I will talk a lot more about this in the remainder of my speech. Another thing is what is in recent years, we see, because of digitalization, the growing importance of data. For example, driverless cars are coming. And driverless cars depend on data. They depend on having the right information, where to drive, not to bump into other cars, not to crash, and so on. So the data have become so important in virtually every realm of the economy. And another thing I want to mention is the human-machine interaction. We talk a lot about robotization, robots, algorithms are taking over jobs that humans used to do. And some people are afraid that maybe in the end the robots will take all the jobs. I think it's not really going to happen like that, but it's more how can humans and robots collaborate for the benefit of society. That is the big question and the big challenge that we address currently. Okay, next slide. So what another aspect is an integration of the digital, the physical and the biological realm. What does it mean? Well, when the digital revolution started we saw a lot of IT companies were coming up, and they were developing apps and software and so on. But what we see now is that the digital and the physical are really so much linked that it almost doesn't make sense to make the distinction anymore. Think about an airline, an aircraft. An aircraft cannot fly without proper IT systems. There's so much information flowing around. So almost every business has become an information business or an IT business. But also the biological realm, like our bodies, the living world. If you read this book of Hariri, it's called Homo Deus, he predicts that in the future we will be able to upgrade ourselves, putting new elements in our body that enhance our brain or that enhance our physical strength. So we already see in this world that we can 3D print organs of our body. So here also we see a sort of merging of the digital, the physical and the biological even. And this development has just begun, and we can expect a lot in the years to come. There's a lot of research going on, and there's a lot of question, what will that mean? But you can also imagine there's a huge economy emerging around it. There will be lots of new businesses that will address this issue, and they already exist, but it will really grow. So, to sum up, this knowledge economy brings a big bounty. It brings a lot of benefits. It brings more prosperity. It brings maybe higher quality of life. It brings maybe different jobs, maybe more quality of life even, if we use this technology in the right way, of course. But also, we see a big spread, and that means not everybody will benefit equally from these new developments. We will see new inequalities, new divides that will probably emerge and that we already see emerging. Some of these divides are not new, they were already there. Some of them may be new. And what I will do now is to sketch some of those divides that we can see emerging in this new knowledge economy. And actually I see 4 divides that open up. And again, some of them were already there, but one is the one between the high-skilled and the less-skilled. We can see that in this knowledge economy that depends so much on innovation, the highly skilled people who are working in this section of the economy, they will benefit. They will have higher salaries, they will have great jobs in great environments, good quality of life, and so on. But what about the taxi drivers that will be replaced maybe by driverless taxis? What about truck drivers? What about a lot of people who did not finish any education? And, well, what can they do? This is a really big societal question. How do we do that? Second, the second divide is between countries. We can see clearly some countries are leading the way in this new economy, and others are really trailing behind. A third divide is between regions and cities and city types. So within countries, we can see enormous differences between cities, especially successful cities, and the countryside. And these divisions are growing. I will explain why. And then within cities, we also see divides between segments of the city, parts of the city that are prosperous, that are doing fine, doing well, and other parts of the cities that stay behind. So, to start with the first divide, to illustrate that, the divide between the skilled and the not so skilled. This slide shows you the changes in wages, so what people actually earn, in the USA between 1963 and 2008. You can see actually quite a growing gap between the ones who finish graduate school, who have really benefited, and the school dropouts. It's funny because many of the founders of successful companies are proud to be school dropouts. So it's not always that school dropouts end up there, but overall, and you can tell your children that, this is the picture. So, and the college graduates are, but you see the gap is growing. This is happening in the US, but the same happens in most European countries. Maybe a little bit less extreme, but it happens. This slide shows you the big division between countries and between regions. Here we can see the darker the color, the more innovative. We can see that innovation is really concentrated in the old core of Europe, let's say the UK, the Netherlands, big parts of Germany, Paris. And you can also see that the south of Europe is really still lagging behind, even after decades of European investments. We can also see the central and eastern parts of Europe. They have, of course, a very different history, so it's maybe too early to judge. But also there we see they are less performant in terms of innovation in this knowledge economy. And the big question is, how can that be changed? How can they catch up? This slide shows you how big the difference can be within a country. This is the USA, and this is venture capital investment. So this is the number of dollars that are invested in new companies. It's more or less an indication of innovation, of startup activity. You can see a very spiky landscape where really most of the venture capital goes to a very small number of places. On the East Coast, mainly on the West Coast, Silicon Valley is the one on the left. And you see on the East Coast, you see New York, Boston, all the areas where the real innovation happens. And in between, you see there is something, but not that much. It's really a spiky landscape. And the same is true if you look at where did the new jobs emerge in high tech in the USA. Again, the same picture, a very fast growth of new jobs in the West and in the East, in the big cities and in Silicon Valley. So a very uneven landscape in the USA. Unfortunately, we don't have these data for Europe, but I'm pretty sure also there we will see some cities creating a lot of new jobs in innovation and digital industries, and others much less so. So it's spiky. This one is for Europe. I found it's about IT activity. It's, of course, only one sector, but it is an innovative sector, and it's an indication of what happens. Again, we see a few cities are really doing well as IT hubs, mainly London, Paris, Munich, and some others like Stockholm, we see Helsinki, we see Amsterdam, Karlsruhe, we see also doing fine. But in the south of Europe and also in the eastern part, we don't see these kind of innovation hubs. What is actually interesting about this picture is that it's not only the very big cities that are doing fine, we also see some smaller, medium-sized towns that actually have done a great job. And you just showed us Eindhoven. I think it's one of those cases. Not a big city, only 200,000 people, something like that, but very much specialized, very much high-tech and knowledge-based. So these cities can also do well. It's not only a game of the bigger ones. Small cities can thrive, and I will explain that later, why that is. So if we look at the literature, the academic literature about cities and knowledge economy, what can we say? Where is entrepreneurship and innovation higher? Well, one category where it is higher, it's in cities that are more densely populated. So scale and density matters for innovation. When people are together, when a lot of smart people are together in one region, they start to do smart things, to put it simply. Lower density population regions have much more trouble to catch up in this knowledge economy. Second, we see that regions that are more diversified are doing fine in this knowledge economy, although this is a sort of tension, because on the one hand people say you need diverse economies to create innovation, but on the other hand you can say no, you need more specialization to really do something special. And I think both is true. It's really up to each region and city to see where are we, what are our strong economic points, where is our innovation potential, and find that out. Third finding from the literature, academic literature, is that regions that are less dominated by very big firms tend to do better in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. Then multinational companies and international linkages are very important for innovation and entrepreneurship. So the country or the city must be open, must be accessible And international companies play a role in bringing in new knowledge, new impulses, and so on. Regions with large market potential have a natural advantage. Take, for example, Germany. If you are an entrepreneur in Germany and you develop a new product, you have a very big home market to sell your product. And it can be easier than if you are in a small country with specific language, then you have to export to really create scale. So big countries like Germany or USA have an advantage, and this is also a plea for more European economic integration. If Europe wants to be economically more successful, we need to tear down these economic barriers that still exist. Finally, regions with a strong university tend to do better than regions which don't. That's because universities have become very important players in the knowledge economy, not only to educate people, but also to do innovation, to attract young people to the city. Many of the young people stay after they have graduated. So a university is a very crucial asset, and cities and regions are wise to put the university not in a faraway corner outside the city, somewhere in a green field, but to integrate the university much more in the city. I will give you some examples of that later. So this slide shows you how the university system and the city are actually related to each other. This is a sort of model that I developed to understand the interrelations. On the top of the model, you can see the universities and the R&D, the research and development system. What happens when you have very high quality university, for example, Cambridge or Oxford in the UK? What happens? You attract the best students. They want to come to you. They come from all over the world, not only Europe, but also from Asia, etc. You attract the best brains. And when you do that, actually, the education improves, because when you have the best students in your classroom, the education for the others becomes better as well. This is what we all know as ex-students. So the same happens when you look at research. When you have a university that has very high quality research, what happens? It attracts the best researchers from all over the world. And what happens if you have more and better researchers? They are often also teachers. So then again, your education improves as well. Then let's see the link with the city and the economy of the city. What happens if you have very smart students in your city and very good research? It means you can also do innovation. It means your city is more attractive for companies that do research and development, that develop new products. They want to be in your place because you have the smart, bright people there. So the attractiveness for knowledge-based companies and institutes will grow if your education and research system is better. And then again, if you have this dynamic, more companies will come. Your city will become attractive also for expats, knowledge workers that come from other cities, because you create an international economy. So what we see in this dynamic is that it is a sort of what they call a Matthew effect. The cities that have already this in place, they grow. They attract more because of this globalization. And the cities that don't have it have a hard time to compete with the global winners in this industry. We can see the winners in this game are, as I already said, university towns like Oxford, Cambridge, but also Leuven in Belgium or Heidelberg in Germany. They have this dynamic happening. So in the 70s, they used to be mainly university cities, but now they have become economic powerhouses because they attract so much business around their research and education. And they have managed to develop new collaboration between business and academia in a very successful way. That's one type of winner, the smaller university cities that are very specialized. A second type of winner in this game are the capital cities in Europe. We see Paris, London, to a lesser extent also Amsterdam, Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, those kind of cities that have a lot of amenities that attract brains, attract smart people, that have also good universities, and that have set in motion this dynamic of attracting brains, attracting investment, becoming even better in your university funding, and so on. So internationalization has become a big boost for these cities. Also, the rewarding of excellence, we can see in European research funding that more funding is going to the best ones. We tend to do that more. And so if you are very good, you get more funding and you can get even better. So how can other cities mimic this? That's a big issue, of course. Well, what happens if you, in these very successful knowledge cities, we can see divides emerging within the cities. And in this simple model shows you some divides that we see happening. On the one hand, you have the academic and highly skilled part of the city, and you have the less highly skilled part of the city. So these people tend to live in different worlds. This is some divide that we can see, and the divide might be growing. On the other hand, you have with internationalization, we see a growing divide between the local people who come from that country or city and the new ones who come from outside, from other countries. And in many cases, they don't mix very well. They live in their own bubble. We could see, for example, international students in many cities. They don't mix very much with local students. They have their own student unions, their own dormitories, their own, So how do you create integration? That is a big question. Because if you don't create integration, the students will go out and they will maybe never come back. This was just something in the history. But if you create a real link between the foreign student and your town, maybe they come back as investor, as company owner, whatever. So this is really important. How do you create a society that is homogeneous, or at least that is more integrated in terms of these divides? So what to do about these divides? One thing cities can do is to develop a smart specialization. So small cities that are not that very good, like London or Cambridge or whatever, they always have something where they are good at, and they must develop that much more and stand out in that. Second thing, and I will explain later, is they can link academic research and education to urban and civic challenges. So make sure that the university and the research system is not completely separated from the city as a whole. A third is to combine the knowledge economy with tourism and leisure. I will give an example of that. Fourth is to engage the citizens that are not part of the knowledge economy, engage them in science. I will give them an example as well. And finally, and that's why we are here today mainly, is to create hybrid, mixed and inspiring places where this knowledge economy can thrive, and places that people love to go to. So first, smart specialization. This is an economic strategy that cities can follow to play a role in this international knowledge economy. They have to make choices. They have to be clear, okay, we are going for this or that, because this is our specific strength. This is difficult for cities because you always have a lot of interest and everybody wants to highlight its own activities. But here, making choices is key. Then you can create a competitive advantage, and you need collaborative leadership to make it happen. Second thing is, cities can connect their research and education much better to the city. I think one great example is from Tampere in Finland, where they created a special organization, Demola. Now, Demola is looking in the city, interviewing companies, governments, and so on, asking them, what is your problem? What needs to be solved here? Also hospitals or care institutions. And then they formulate challenges that need to be done, and based on that challenges, they create student teams that work on these challenges. So the students are not working on theoretical things, they work on real-life problems of Tampere. And along the way, they learn a lot. Sometimes they create their own companies, and successfully so. So to me, this is a great example how you can link academic education to urban challenges in the city. This case is Norrköping. It's in Sweden, not so far from Stockholm. And they created a visualization center. They have very strong research in visualization, which means scanning things, showing things with data visualizations, and so on. And they do not only do the research, but they create an experience center around it. So everybody can go there and see what you can do with visualization. You can experience it. Children love to go there. I went there with my children. They really were enthusiastic about it. And this is a way how you can combine high-tech knowledge development with experience, leisure, and tourism. I think it's a great case that other cities could do the same. Maybe not in this field, but in other fields. Then this is another example. It's the city of Magdeburg in Germany. What they did is to create more connection between the academic field and the citizens. So one night per year, they open up all their university research laboratories for the general public. And they organize a lot of big parties around it with lots of beer, lots of fun, but also sort of education aspects. They call it the long night of science. And every time, something like 50,000 people come there. So it really creates the feeling of the people in Magdeburg to be proud of their knowledge society, knowledge economy, and to make really the connection that the knowledge economy is not something that happens there far away on the campus, but no, it is in their city and they can be proud of it, and they see also what are the results, what are these people creating. And they have done this now for 10 years or so, and every time the number of visitors are increasing. This is a case from Leuven in Belgium. They also put a lot of effort in making the connection between the academic community and the normal citizens. And one of the things they did is create a medical house. In Leuven they have a very successful medical faculty that creates new inventions for the human body, new treatments and so on. But it's not visible for the people what is actually happening. So what they did is they create a house in the center of the city where everybody can go, not only the citizens but also tourists and so on, and they can see what these researchers are doing, what are the latest innovations, what is happening and what does it mean for me as a citizen. So it's a constant permanent dialogue between citizen and science right in the middle of the city. Okay, spaces and places. How much time do I have? Where's the moderator? I don't know. As much as 2 minutes. Okay, so spaces and places. This is the old medieval way of creating knowledge. It's the monk sitting in the cloister writing text. And since then we have moved a long way. The first universities emerged in Italy in the 11th century, it's Bologna. Then the 19th century we see the campus model where the university in the US, the idea emerged that no, we should put the university far away from the city in a green field where actually the researchers can think and can be quiet and develop their innovation without being disturbed. And this is the 70s model where mass education, mass higher education emerged, and we started to build campuses like this, really massive campuses outside cities, sort of suburban areas that are specialized in research and education. This is the campus of Apple. This is the newest development, is that also companies like Apple, Google are developing campuses where they have all sorts of facilities in there, and they create an environment where they think is good for innovation. I think we need to think deeply about what kind of spaces do we need in the future. And I think we should move more from monofunctional and greenfield areas to more urban and integrated mixed-use areas where everything happens in the same time. Because we need new collaboration, new kind of division between academia, business, society, and we cannot separate these things anymore. So, on the one hand, we can say the city is the campus. We don't need a separate campus. The city itself is the campus. This is The Hague, where they create, as they call it, an innovation district, where actually the university is completely integrated in the city. Another model is that we say, no, the campus that we have should be more like a city. And this is what we see in a lot of campuses around Europe. The campus used to be the place for universities, but now we also see student housing, we see shopping, we see all kind of amenities like sports. So the university campus becomes more like a city. That's another model, how the integration can happen. This model we are testing in our own university in Amsterdam. It's called the neighborhood campus, where we open very small branches of the university in neighborhoods in the city, even in problem neighborhoods. And we say that our university should serve the local population there. And so we are training our students to help, for example, people with debts, or to help children with their homework in these areas. So we create very small centers where this integration is happening. So this is my last slide. In sum, I would say creating this new knowledge economy requires co-production of actors, players that are not so used to work together. And this is really an art. So we need to discover common ground to create these new concepts. We need to create arenas and platforms where people from different realms met and think and design new solutions for this knowledge economy. And I think so the key thing is to get things done together, to find new concepts and new types of collaborations. That's it. Thank you very much.